Every night you perform the most mysterious act in the universe, and you probably don't even realize it. You lie down, close your eyes, and then you vanish. Not your body, not your breath, but you, the one who thinks, worries, plans, remembers, simply disappears. And here's what will disturb you. You have absolutely no idea where you go. When you surrender to sleep, you'll dissolve into something so profound, so utterly beyond your daily understanding, that if you truly grasp what happens, you would never take consciousness for granted again. But we've been conditioned to treat this daily death and resurrection as ordinary. How fascinating that the most extraordinary journey you'll ever take happens every single night, and you've been sleepwalking through it your entire life. So let's begin this discussion with something rather unsettling. Every evening you perform what amounts to voluntary suicide. But don't worry, I'm not being dramatic, I'm actually being precise. Think about it. What you call yourself, this chattering, thinking, experiencing being, willingly steps into oblivion. You see, we've been so accustomed to this nightly disappearance that we've stopped noticing how absolutely extraordinary it really is. Your thoughts stop. Your sense of time evaporates. Your precious identity, all of those opinions, those memories and concerns you clutch to so tightly, simply dissolves, and yet somehow, mysteriously, something continues. Something that isn't quite you, but isn't quite not you either. It's as if every night you're given a demonstration of what the Buddhists call the void, that space of pure being that exists when the ego takes a holiday. But here's what's truly fascinating. We treat this daily miracle as though it were nothing more than maintenance, like charging a battery or defragging a computer. How wonderfully we've managed to make the mystical mundane. So let's examine this disappearing act a little bit more closely. What actually vanishes when you fall asleep? Your name doesn't matter anymore. Your job, your relationships, your endless to-do lists, gone. All those things you think define you simply aren't there. The person that was worried about tomorrow's meeting, who remembers yesterday's conversation, who has opinions about politics and preferences about coffee, that entire construction just stops. And it's the most fascinating forgetting imaginable. And yet, curiously, you don't experience this as loss or death. There's no sense of tragedy or deep sleep, no mourning for the vanished self. Why? Because the one who would do the mourning is also disappeared. That's the part that I find absolutely amazing. Every night, you prove to yourself that you can exist perfectly well without being yourself. In fact, you might say that you exist more purely, more essentially, when all the psychological furniture has been cleared away. But here's the uncomfortable question this raises. If you can be so complete without your identity every single night, what does that tell us about the reality of this identity you defend so fiercely during the daytime? Could it be that what you think you are is far more optional than what you've been led to believe? Now we're getting to something that's really, truly puzzling. During your waking hours, There's always this sense of someone watching you, isn't there? An observer behind your eyes, the third eye, a witness to your thoughts, a constant companion who never seems to sleep. You might call it your consciousness, awareness, or simply the all. This watcher is so persistent, so reliable that you probably never question its existence. It's there when you're happy. It's there when you're sad. It's there when you're bored. It's there when you're excited. The one constant in your ever-changing experience called life. But then sleep arrives, and this eternal observer, this supposedly permanent witness, simply isn't. Not unconscious, because that would imply something there is to be unconscious. Not absent, because that would suggest a place from which it's missing. No, it's more mysterious than that. The watcher itself turns into the watching. What does that mean? It suggests something rather revolutionary about the nature of consciousness itself. Perhaps this observer you think you are isn't quite as solid, as permanent, as fundamental as you've been assuming. Maybe consciousness isn't something you have, but rather something you temporarily appear in, like a wave appearing in the ocean. And then when sleep comes, the wave subsides back into the ocean, but the ocean itself always remains. The question is, what is the ocean? But wait, it gets even more mysterious, because sometimes in this state where you have supposedly vanished, the most extraordinary theater production starts to begin. Dreams. Now, this is going to absolutely baffle you. If you're unconscious, if the self has dissolved, who exactly is creating these elaborate dreams? Who's writing the script? Who's casting the characters? Who's designing the sets? And most mysterious of it all, who's watching the show? In your dreams, you meet people. You meet people you've never seen, visit places that don't exist, have conversations that you've never had. The creativity is astounding. The detail is remarkable. Your dreaming mind constructs entire worlds, complete with physics, relationships, and storylines that can be more compelling than any Hollywood production I've seen. But the dreamer, right? The one who would normally take credit for such creativity is supposedly absent. Here's the most fascinating part. In your dream, you believe it's all real. You're convinced that the dream you is the real you, and the dream world is the real world. The illusion is perfect until you wake up. Now that should make you pause. If consciousness can create such convincing realities while you're absent, what makes you so certain that this waking reality isn't just another kind of dream? Perhaps it's a dream that's being dreamed by something far more vast than your individual mind. Now let's venture into the most mysterious territory of all, deep sleep. During deep sleep, our bodies regenerate cells and tissues to recover from daytime fatigue. That's what happens. When you exist in a state so profound that nothing, absolutely nothing appears to be happening. This is where things become truly mind-bending. In deep sleep, there are no thoughts, no sensations, no experiences of any kind, no space, no self. And yet something is there. Our ancient ancestors had a word for this state They called it the causal body, the most absolute fundamental level of your being. It's you without any qualities, you without any attributes, you without even the sense of being you. Pure existence, aware of itself without needing to think about it. What's shocking is that you visit this state of perfect peace, perfect wholeness, perfect being every single night. The very thing that you're searching for in meditation, in philosophy, in religion, you experience it naturally every time you fall asleep. Now we're getting to something that's truly going to disturb your carefully constructed sense of self, because what sleep reveals is this: consciousness doesn't need you to exist. Think about it carefully. Every night, your personal identity, your name, your history, your personality, your preferences completely disappears. And yet awareness itself continues. It's like discovering that the light in your room doesn't actually belong to the lamp. The lamp just temporarily shapes and focuses a light that exists independently. During sleep, consciousness flows freely, uncontained by the boundaries of your ego. It's no longer your consciousness. It's simply consciousness itself playing through the instrument of your nervous system, like a wind does through a flute. The flute doesn't own the wind going through it. It just gives that wind temporary form and melody. It's what the ancients meant when they spoke of the universal mind, the cosmic consciousness, the Buddha nature. They weren't talking about some otherworldly concept. They were pointing to what you experience every single night when your individual awareness dissolves back into the ocean of pure being. And here's what's beautiful and shocking about this. What you call your consciousness is never really yours to begin with. You're not a separate being having conscious experiences. Your consciousness itself, temporarily dreaming that it's a separate being. The wave is not separate from the ocean. It's the ocean expressing itself as a wave. And every night in sleep, you return to your oceanic nature. If you were to take a 5-gallon bucket and go to the beach, fill up the bucket, bring that bucket back home, place it on your kitchen counter, what would you have? Some would say you have a bucket full of water. I would say you have the ocean on your countertop. All of the same attributes that are in the ocean are now on your counter. You become what you've always been, but you've temporarily forgotten what you are. Now let's examine something equally mysterious. How you manage to reassemble yourself every morning. Because that's what happens, isn't it? After hours of complete dissolution, somehow all the pieces of your identity magically come back together again. Pay attention to this process very carefully the next time you wake up. First, there's pure awareness. No memory of yesterday, no anticipation of today. Just consciousness awakening to itself, like the first light of dawn. And then gradually, the familiar structures begin to reassemble. Oh yes, I'm Robert. I live in this house. I have this job. I was worried about this meeting. Layer by layer, memory by memory, the psychological self rebuilds itself from what exactly? From nothing, from pure potential, It's like watching a magician pull an entire personality out of an empty hat. And the most fascinating part, you do this reconstruction so automatically, so unconsciously, that you never even stop to wonder who's doing the rebuilding. If your identity was truly gone, truly dissolved, what force knows exactly which thoughts, which memory, which personality traits belong to you? I believe the same intelligence that grows your hair, beats your heart, and digests your food is the same wisdom that knows exactly how to transform a seed into a flower without any conscious effort on the seed's part. Your ego doesn't reconstruct itself. It's reconstructed by a far deeper intelligence, an intelligence that you rarely acknowledge the existence of. Now we get to a really, truly shocking realization. Everything that I've been describing about sleep, the dissolution of identity, the flow of consciousness without the container, the mysterious intelligence that operates without your supervision, this just isn't happening to you when you fall asleep. It's happening to you right now in what we call our waking life. You see, the only difference between sleeping consciousness and waking consciousness is that in waking consciousness, there's the illusion of someone in charge. Then your ego steps forward and claims ownership of the entire process. I'm thinking these thoughts. I'm making these decisions. I'm living this life. But look more closely. Did you decide to have that thought that just occurred to you? Did you choose to fall in love, or did it happen to you? Do you control your heartbeat, your digestion, your immune system? Are you actively managing all the incredible complexity of your cellular metabolism right now? The same mysterious intelligence that operates during sleep, creating dreams, maintaining the body's organizing memory, is operating right now. You're just not giving it credit because your ego has convinced you that you're the one running the show. But what if I told you that the waking life is just another kind of dream? A dream in which consciousness dreams that it's a separate individual having experiences, making choices, living a life. A dream so convincing that the dreamer completely forgets that they're even dreaming. Our ancient ancestors have always known this. That's why they speak of awakening, of being born again. Not awakening from sleep, but awakening from the dream of being a separate self. Awakening to what you discover every night in deep sleep. That you're not a person having consciousness, but consciousness itself playing at being a person. What I'm sharing with you isn't new, you know. Ancient traditions have been pointing to this mystery for thousands of years. They call it by different names: Brahman, the Tao, Buddha nature, the Egyptian mystery system, the Holy of Holies, the kingdom of God that is within you. Man, know thyself, and thou shalt know the universe and the gods. They were all describing the same thing to you, the same place you go every night in deep sleep. They realized that the journey into deep sleep every night is actually a journey home, a return to your original nature, your true self, your deepest identity, not the small self with its endless problems and pursuits, but the vast self that has no problems because it has no boundaries. The secret is this: you need to recognize what you already are, what you've always been, what you experience most purely every night before you start to pretend to be someone else. The next time you lie down, Instead of treating it as mere rest, recognize it as a sacred journey. You're about to dissolve back into your true nature, to experience what the mystics spend a lifetime seeking, unity with the absolute. And you do this every single night as naturally as breathing. And when you wake each morning, instead of immediately grabbing onto your identity, try staying in that spacious awareness for just a moment longer. Feel how vast and peaceful you are before you become someone again. This is meditation, not something you do, but what you naturally are when you stop doing something. Remember, consciousness is not something you have. You are something consciousness is doing. And every night in the mystery of sleep, consciousness takes a vacation from being you and simply enjoys being itself. What a profound thought, that the deepest spiritual realization is something you experience every single night and wake up forgetting every single morning. But now you know. And knowing this, how can you ever take this dream of being someone quite so seriously again? And that's it, y'all. Have a good night.